follow.
That would be the thesis of the book, and we'll go into that at length, but I wanted to start at the very beginning. You dedicated this book to Barry Goldwater. What would he, in your opinion, having known him and having dealt with him on these political issues, have thought of the current conservative movement as it has become? And what would the conservative movement have thought of him at this point? What do they think of him now?
Well, that's it. I think right now we can say, in fact, I discuss this in the book, that Goldwater republicanism is really R.I.P. It's been put to rest by most of the people who are now active in moving the movement further to the right than it's ever been. I think the senator, before he departed, was very distressed with conservatism. In fact, it was our conversations back in 1994 that started this book. It's really where I began. We wanted to find answers to the questions as to why Republicans were acting as they were, why conservatives had taken over the party and were being followed, as easily as they were, and taking the party where he didn't think it should go.
What did you find? in less than the 200 pages that the book goes into.
I ran into a massive study that had really been going on for 50 years now by academics. They've never really shared this with the general public. It's a remarkable analysis of the authoritarian personality, both those who are inclined to follow leaders and those who jump in front and want to be the leaders. It was not the opinion of social scientists. It was information they drew by questioning large numbers of people, hundreds of thousands of people, in anonymous testing where they conceded, their innermost feelings and reactions to things. And it turned out that these people were, most of these that came out in the testing were people who had been pre-qualified to be conservatives, and then they found that this indeed fit with the authoritarian personality.
Does it really, do the studies indicate that it really has anything to do with the political point of view? Would it be easier to essentially superimpose authoritarianism over the right than it would the left? Is it theoretically possible that they could have gone in either direction, and it's just a question of people who like to follow other people?
They have found really maybe a small 1% of the left who follow authoritarianism, probably the far left. But as far as widespread testing, it is just overwhelmingly conservative orientation.
There is an extraordinary amount of academic work that you quote in the book. A lot of it is very unsettling. It deals with psychological principles that are frightening and that may have faced other nations at other times, and Germany and Italy in the 30s come into mind in particular. But how does it apply now, and to what degree should it scare us, and to what degree is it something that might still be forestalled?
Well, to me, it was something of an epiphany to run into this information. First, I'd never read about it before. I sort of worked my way into it until I found it. It's not generally known out there what's going on. And I think, from best we can tell, these people, the followers, a few of them will change their ways when they realize what they're doing, not even aware of their behavior. The leaders, those who are inclined to dominate, are not going to change a second. They're going to be what they are. So by and large, the reason I write about this is I think we need to understand it. We realize when you take a certain step and vote a certain way and head in a certain direction, where this can end up. So it's sort of a cautionary note. It's a warning as to where this can go, because other countries have gone there.
And the idea of leaders and followers going down this path and perhaps taking a country with them requires, this whole edifice requires an enemy. Communism, Al-Qaeda, Democrats, me, whoever, for the 2 minutes hate. I mean, there is, I overuse the Orwellian analogies to nauseating proportions, but it really was, in reading what you wrote about, and especially what the academics talked about, there was that 2 minutes hate thing. There has to be an opponent, an enemy to coalesce around, or the whole thing falls apart. Is that the gist of it?
It is one of the things that, believe it or not, still holds conservatism together, because there are many factions in conservatism, and their dislike or hatred of those they portray as liberal, who will be anybody who basically disagrees with them, is one of the cohesive factors. There are a few others, but that's certainly one of the basic. There's no question that particularly the followers, they're very aggressive in their effort to pursue and help their authority figure out, or their authority beliefs out. They will do whatever needs to be done in many regards. They will blindly follow. They stay loyal too long. And this is the frightening part of it.
Let me read something from the book. Let me read this one quote, then I have a question about it. Many people believe that neoconservatives and many Republicans appreciate that they are more likely to maintain influence and control of the presidency if the nation remains under ever-increasing threats of terrorism. So they have no hesitation in pursuing policies that can provoke potential terrorists throughout the world. That's ominous, not just in the sense that authoritarians involved in conservatism and now republicanism would politicize counter-terror here, which we've already argued that point on many occasions. But are you actually saying here that they would set up, encourage terrorism from other countries to set them up as a bogeyman to have, again, that group to hate here, a group to be, more importantly, afraid of here?
What I'm saying is that there has been fear-mongering, the likes of which we have not seen in a long time in this country. It happened early in the Cold War. We got accustomed to it. We learned to live with it. We learned to understand what it was about and get it in proportion. We haven't done that yet with terrorism. And this administration is really capitalizing on it and using it for its political advantage. No question, the academic testing shows, the empirical evidence shows, that when people are frightened, they tend to go to these authority figures. They tend to become more conservative. So it's paid off for them politically to do this.
This all seems to require not merely venality or immorality, but a kind of amorality, where morals don't enter into it at all. We're right. So anything we do to preserve our process, our power, even if it by itself is wrong, it's right in the greater sense. It's that wonderful rationalization that everybody uses in small doses throughout their lives. But is this idea, this sort of psychological review of the whole thing, does it apply to Dick Cheney? Does it apply to George Bush? Does it apply to Bill Frist? Who are the names on these authoritarian figures?
Well, you just named three that I discuss in some length in the book. I focused in the book not on the Bush administration and Cheney and the president, but because they really have been there, done that. But what I wanted to understand is what they have done is they've made it legitimate to have authoritarianism. It was already operating on Capitol Hill. After the '94 control by the Republicans of the Congress, it recreated the mood. It restructured the Congress itself in a very authoritarian style, in the House in particular. Senate hasn't gone there yet, but it's going there because more House members are moving over. This atmosphere is what Bush and Cheney walked into. They are authoritarian personalities, Cheney much more so than Bush. And they have made it legitimate, and they have taken it way past where anybody's ever taken it in the United States.
Our society's best defense against that is what? Do we have to hope that, as you suggested, the people who follow wise up and break away from this, the sort of lockstep salute? Well, of course they're right. Of course there's WMD. Of course they're terrorists. Of course there's Al-Qaeda. Of course everything is the way the president says it. Or do we rely on the hope that these are fanatics, and fanatics always screw up because they would rather believe in their own cause than double-check their own math?
The lead researcher in this field told me, he said, I look at the numbers in the United States, and I see about 23% of the population who are pure right-wing authoritarian followers. They're not going to change. They're going to march over the cliff. The best thing to deal with them, and they're growing, and they have a tremendous influence on Republican politics. The best defense is understanding them, to realize what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they operate. Then it can be kept in perspective, then they can be seen for what they are.
Did any of this ring familiar to you from the Nixon administration, or is this a different world? No,
I must say that about everything that went wrong with Watergate, you could really count to authoritarianism as well.
Give me an example. In other words, not getting away with it was a result of it too?
Take Gordon Liddy and his following whatever Nixon wanted, even the hint of anything he wants. Salute, yes sir, let's do it.
And the story that he has told about you and you've told about him saying, all this knowledge in my brain that could bring the President of the United States down, tell me to go and stand on a corner, and what was the rest of it?
Tell me where you want me shot. He said, I don't want you shooting me on my house because I've got children, but shoot me on a street corner. That's a loyal, right-wing authoritarian follower in action at the extreme.
You've been a historian. You've been a part of history. You've been to one of the central moments of history in the 20th century. What kind of danger are we facing a legitimate threat to the concept of democracy in this country?
I don't think we're in a fascist road right now. We are so close to it, though, Keith. That's why I wrote the book, because I want people to understand exactly what is going on and why it's going on.
It is an extraordinary document. All the best with it. John Dean, former counsel, White House counsel to Richard Nixon, author of the new book, Conservatives Without Conscience. As always, sir, great thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Keith.
Good to see you.